What if I told you that for over a decade, one of the most brutal serial killers in history walked freely through Soviet Russia, while the government denied he even existed? Asterisk, he hunted children in broad daylight, left mutilated bodies in the woods, bit off flesh like a starving animal, and no one stopped him. Asterisk, because in the Soviet Union, evil was impossible. His name was Andrei Chikatilo, but history remembers him as the Red Ripper of Russia. They never hear me coming. They never hear me coming. The woods outside Shakti are dense and quiet, a perfect hiding place for things that should not exist. Things like me. It's always the same. A train station, a lost face, a desperate child clinging to false kindness. The Soviet Union is built on order and pride, but even the proudest machine has rust in its joints. I am that rust. My name doesn't matter yet. To them, I'm just another tired face in the crowd, grey coat, soft voice, clean hands. They never look twice. That's the beauty of control. I look like everyone else. I sound like everyone else. But there's a hunger inside me, something that's grown louder over the years. A sickness no doctor can name. A need it started in 1978. Her name was Lena, 9 years old. Brown eyes, red scarf. I found her near the Rostov bus depot, sitting alone on a concrete step. She smiled when I asked if she was lost. I remember how her voice cracked when I said I'd help her find her mother. I remember the way my hands trembled not from fear, but anticipation. It was the first time I felt whole. Afterward, I buried her deep in the woods. No one saw, no one suspected. I went home, kissed my wife, and ate dinner in silence while the radio hummed about progress and party slogans. But in my mind, I was back in that forest, reliving every moment. The newspapers never mentioned her name. The years blurred together after that. The faces changed, but the hunger stayed. I learned how to move through cities like a ghost. Metro stations, bus stops, marketplaces, anywhere chaos thrived. The Soviet police were blind, fattened by lies and political pride. The party said monsters like me didn't exist. They needed the world to believe that socialism had cured the sickness of man. But I knew better. By 1983, the whispers began. Dozens gone, mostly girls, some boys, always near train stations, always mutilated. Rumors, fluels, cannibals, escaped lunatics, but no one dared say the truth. Not here, not in the land of Lenin. That's when he started watching Viktor Burakov, a police detective, quiet, sharp eyes, the kind of man who asks questions even when told not to. I saw him at a station once, watching the crowd, pretending to smoke. He glanced at me for just a moment too long, and I knew the game had begun. I started seeing him more often after that. At first I thought it was coincidence, a familiar face in a sea of strangers. But no, Viktor Burakov wasn't just another man in uniform. He moved like a predator, cautious, patient, not like the others. The rest of the militia were blunt instruments, beating confessions out of the innocent, dragging drunks off the streets to meet quotas. But Viktor, he studied people. He listened. He was dangerous. The first time our eyes met, really met, was at Don Lesko's station. I was following a girl 12, maybe 13, dragging a worn school bag across the icy platform. She had that lost look, the kind that pulled at me like gravity. I was close, so close I could almost feel the pulse beneath her skin. And then I felt him. Viktor was leaning against a rusted column, smoking a cigarette he never lit, watching me. Not the girl me. I walked away. The girl lived that night. I couldn't sleep, not because of guilt nor that never visited me, but because something new had entered the game. For the first time in years, I felt hunted. They tried to catch me. Once before, 1984, they thought they had me. Pulled me from the street like a criminal, took me to the grey box of a station and made me sit in a cold metal chair. They asked me about my job, my family, my past. I answered politely, like always. They had nothing. I wore the mask too well, and yet they had a blood sample. The forensic team was confident. The murders had semen. Type A, B. I am type A. That was the Soviets' salvation. They let me go, apologized, handed me back to the world. But Viktor, he didn't believe the science. I saw it in his eyes. He didn't stop watching me. For a time, I laid low. My wife grew suspicious. My children, well, they stopped looking me in the eye years ago. I worked at a factory, then a school, then a warehouse, always blending in, always invisible. But the urge returned. It always did. You see, I didn't kill for revenge or love or anger. I killed because it made the world quiet. All the noise, the lies, the party slogans, the thunder of trains and boots and marching men, it vanished when I had them. When I saw the terror in their eyes, felt their small hands clawing, heard the final gasp of breath. It was like God whispered in my ear. And yet now, the whisper was different. It sounded like footsteps, like a uniform approaching. The human body is fragile, so easy to break, so eager to give in when pressure is applied in just the right place. They say I tortured them, that I prolonged their deaths, that I found joy in pain. But those words come from people who've never touched death with their own hands. They don't understand that what I did was an act of silence, an escape from the noise of life in this rotting empire. Do you know what it feels like to see someone truly afraid? Not the kind of fear you see on television or in war, propagandal fear, animal fear. The moment when a child realizes no one is coming, that their screams mean nothing, that their God has abandoned them. That moment is purity, and in that purity, I felt something close to peace. The police still fumbled in the dark, even with dozens of bodies, even with the patterns burned into the soil. They couldn't catch me because they refused to believe I existed. The party needed order, needed control. A serial killer in Soviet Russia, impossible. That was a Western disease, an American nightmare, not here. Not in the land of progress, so they lied to the press, to the public, even to themselves. Each new corpse was written off as isolated tragedy, the result of moral decay or Western corruption. Never the truth, never me, and still, Viktor kept digging. He wasn't like the others. He didn't care about orders. I imagine he had his own ghosts, the kind that keep you up at night. He was the only one who looked at the bodies and saw a pattern. The bite marks, the mutilation, the sheer rage in the wounds. He knew, and I knew he knew. But knowing and proving, those are different things. I once sat across from him in a cafeteria. Not planned, coincidence, or maybe fate. He was eating cabbage soup. I sipped tea. He didn't look up, but I felt the tension in the air, like a wire pulled tight. I remember thinking how easy it would be to follow him home, to see what fear looked like in his eyes. But I didn't. not because I was afraid, because I respected him. A worthy opponent is hard to find in this grey world of blind followers and rusted morals. Viktor had something I didn't hope. He believed in justice, believed that if he just tried hard enough, someone would listen. I almost envied him for that. Almost. The trains kept running, the woods kept hiding my secrets, and every time I found a new child, a new face, I wondered, will this be the one who breaks the silence? Will this be the scream they finally hear? But the world stayed quiet. Only Viktor listened. It was late November, the kind of cold that seeps into your bones and makes even the trees seem afraid. I had been pacing the train station at Novocherkassk for nearly an hour, scanning the crowd, feeling the itch grow inside my chest like a ticking clock. That's when I saw him, Sergei. A boy of 10, scrawny, limping slightly, carrying a broken toy in one hand, a torn satchel in the other. I could tell by his eyes that he was used to being invisible. I followed him out past the platform, down a slush-covered trail toward the edge of the woods. I told him I was a railway inspector, that I needed his help. He hesitated, but only for a second. They always did. We disappeared into the trees. There are moments during the act right before the scream, right before the tearing begins, when the world holds its breath, a perfect silence, like the earth itself is watching. And then it's gone. I left Sergei in the snow, his body twisted, eyes frozen wide. I didn't bury him this time. I didn't hide the blood. Something inside me had changed, grown reckless. Maybe it was the cold, or maybe it was the feeling of Viktor's eyes on me, even when he wasn't there. 2 days later, the body was found. This time, the newspapers couldn't hide it. Not completely. Whispers began to leak beyond the fences of fear and control. Parents pulled their children closer. Women avoided train stations. The party scrambled to contain the fire, but the flame had already caught. And Viktor, he'd moved fast. Within hours, I heard they had stationed plainclothes officers near every major terminal in Rostov, increased patrols, held emergency meetings. There were murmurs of a task force being formed in secret one that didn't answer to local party bosses. Something unofficial, something dangerous. I tried to pull away, to quiet the hunger again, but it was no use. The silence was gone now, replaced by a low, constant hum, paranoia, fear, obsession. I started seeing shadows in the corner of my eyes, hearing footsteps behind me. At night, I'd wake to the sound of distant sirens and wonder if they were for me. It was the first time I truly felt mortal. Still, the need remained. I found myself returning to the train stations anyway, watching, waiting, hoping not for a victim but for Viktor. I wanted to see him again, to feel the tension, to know that somewhere in this broken country, someone understood what I was. Someone was willing to burn down the lie to find me, and I wondered if he ever caught me. Would he hear it too? The silence between screams. It ended the way all monster stories do, with a mistake. December 1990. The snow was heavier than usual. Thick flakes blanketed everything in a kind of false purity. I had grown sloppy, blinded by arrogance. For years I had outsmarted them. All hid in plain sight, fed my hunger, disappeared into crowds like vapor. But the hunger had become louder than reason. It screamed louder than caution. That day, I was at Lachio's station, the kind of place where no one remembers your face. I watched a boy for 20 minutes, a teenager, maybe 15, skinny, alone. eyes darting around like a stray dog. I approached slowly, offering help. My voice calm, my smile practiced. He hesitated. I should have walked away, but I didn't. I led him toward the trees. That's when I saw them. Two men, standing far back, near a rusted bench. They weren't dressed like officers, no uniforms, but they watched me like they knew. I turned and walked away, forcing a cough, pretending to search my coat for cigarettes. The boy slipped away. I could feel the trap tightening. Still, I didn't run. I didn't believe it, not really. After all these years, how could it end in a place so ordinary? But Viktor, he had waited long enough. I was arrested that evening. They took me from the platform like a shadow being pulled off the ground. No struggle, no spectacle, just cold hands on colder wrists. The room they put me in was grey, windowless, suffocating. The walls sweated. The air reeked of mildew and fear. Then he entered Viktor. He didn't yell, he didn't slam his fists or throw accusations. He simply pulled out a chair, sat across from me, and looked into my eyes like he was staring into a cage. We didn't speak for a long time. He slid a photo across the table. A girl, 9 years old, brown eyes, red scarf, Lena, my first. You remember her? He asked. I said nothing. He laid down another. And another, dozens, victims, faces, bones, names, each one. A key unlocking a memory I had locked deep inside. Each one dragging me backward through time, through blood and silence and snow. You killed them, he said. Voice like stone. I didn't nod. I didn't shake my head. I simply smiled. Because he finally said it. He named me. He gave form to what the Soviet Union had denied for over a decade. A serial killer. Me. They locked me in a box and waited for me to scream. But I didn't. I sat on a steel bench for days, while the walls closed in and the air thickened like soup. The guards avoided my eyes. They treated me like something already dead. Maybe I was. Maybe I had been for years. Viktor came back every morning, quiet, measured. He brought files, photographs, names. He never raised his voice, never begged, just waited, like a man staring at a bomb, listening for the last tick dot. At first, I gave him nothing. Then he said a name I hadn't heard in years. My daughter, he whispered. She would have been 12, the year you started. I looked up, for the first time, really looked. He wasn't here for glory, not medals, not headlines. He was here because someone had to be. He placed a tape recorder on the table and clicked it on. I spoke for hours, days. I told him everything. Where I found them. How I lured them. What I did in the woods. What I left behind. Every scream, every bone. Every secret the party refused to sigh. Gave it to him like an offering. I told him about Lena. I told him about the silence. When I finished, the room was so quiet, I thought the world had stopped spinning. You're sick, Viktor said at last, voice breaking. I smiled. I'm a product of what? I looked up at the peeling ceiling, at the flickering light bulb barely holding on, of everything you swore would never exist in this country. He didn't respond. He stood up, took the tapes, walked out. They gave me a trial, paraded me like a monster before the world. The media called me the butcher of Rostov, the Red Ripper, the citizen cannibal. They said I was evil, inhuman, broken. They were wrong. I was human. That's what terrified them. In 1994, they dragged me into a soundproof room. I heard the footsteps, the orders, the click of the door, the hum of something metallic and final. The guards didn't look me in the eye. The executioner wore gloves. I smiled until the end, because the party couldn't hide me anymore, because the silence was finally broken, because Viktor had won, and in that moment, right before the blackness came, I almost felt peace.